The hosts and guests on Everything's Messy podcast are not licensed healthcare professionals. The discussions in our episodes are not personalized medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for medical guidance. Never delay seeking professional medical advice or emergency assistance because of our podcast. We encourage consulting with a healthcare professional before making any significant health changes. By listening to our podcast, you agree to the disclaimer. Thank you for listening to Everything's Messy podcast.
You need to lift weights.
Mm-hmm.
You need to lift weights. You absolutely have to. If you want to change your body composition, have to lift weights. And that I have found with even the women that I attract into my programs is they don't want to be skinny because I am not. And I always say this, I am not your skinny coach. I've never wanted to be. I've only wanted to ever be healthy and strong. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Healthy and strong. And the more I learned about fitness and strength and all of the different modalities, the more I fell in love with strength training. And then there's like this byproduct of strength training that I don't think a lot of people see the connection with yet, where it's like when you finish a strength program, like when you finish for the day and you've lifted and your muscles are doing you feel unstoppable. Like it is the most like the adrenaline boosting, dopamine boosting thing where you're like, I just did that. I just deadlifted my personal record, or I just did that. It gives you this sense of accomplishment, and it makes you feel so strong, not just from the outside, but it also affects you in your body on the inside and your mind.
Hey, welcome to Everything's Messy podcast, where we celebrate the beautiful but messy life experiences that most, if not all, people go through. Get ready to embark on an exciting journey through the raw and unfiltered stories of everyday people. Here, we dive into messy realities of life, from making messy mistakes to triumphs and everything in between. Are you sensing a theme? That's right, it's messy. But this just isn't about the mess. It's about finding strength and resilience in the midst of it all. We'll explore how health, fitness, and wellness play a crucial role in navigating life's twists and very messy turns. And we'll challenge conventional systems, because sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the greatest discoveries. Join us as we embrace the messy, beautiful, and endlessly fascinating stories. Each episode is a testament to the power of our messy journeys and the beauty that emerges from the mess. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee, sparkling water, whatever it may be, and prepare to be inspired. Are you ready? Let's get messy. Hey, everybody. This is Everything's Messy podcast. I'm your messy host, Sarah. Joining me today, I have Eva Rodriguez. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So former HR director turned certified health coach, weight loss coach, holistic coach, all the coach stuff.
Yes, all the coach stuff.
You have a pretty deep, messy story. I'll preface that. One of the things I wanted to ask quickly before we sort of get into your story is I sort of have sensed a theme since I've started this and talking with professionals, and they seem to have come from big job, corporate, like really the, top of the top in their, whatever they're doing in their career, to this pivot of this sort of more calm, slower lifestyle pace of doing this coaching stuff. What, aside from the messy story, that pivot, how did that come to be?
It's definitely part of the messy story, but I just found myself, I call it like my awakening, like spiritual awakening of just like realizing that it didn't matter how much money I was making in this cushy job. It wasn't worth my peace of mind, and it wasn't worth having my nervous system so dysregulated that I couldn't function normally, that I was just always just on the go, and it shot my adrenals and it affected my health in so many different ways. I realized then, I said, I've been through hell. And I often think, it can't be for no reason. It can't be in vain that I've gone through all of this. And so as I was having all of these realizations and all of this, I realized that's when I said, I went into HR. I wanted to help people, right? It's always been in me to be helpful and to help people. And I've been coaching before I even knew what coaching was. But working in an HR environment, it's all about protecting the company that you work for. It really is a legal and compliance position, less than it is a, taking care of the employees. And so I started to feel so disconnected from who my true self was as I was discovering my true self. And it was just so far away from corporate, so far away from the politics of it all, because I wasn't able to make the impact that I knew in my heart I was meant to make. And that's when I realized, you know what, there's got to be a way for me to help at least one other woman just like me, whether she's a single mom, whether she's a corporate exec, whether she's just sad about how her life has turned out because all of these things have fallen apart. If I can just show her that there is hope and that you don't have to stay stuck and you don't have to be miserable and you don't have to have an either or, make a lot of money, but be, unhappy, or not, but be super happy. No, you can have both. And all of it starts when you start changing your thoughts about everything, when you start changing your mindset. And that's what drove me really, head first into all things wellness, all things healing, all things holistic health, because when you don't have your health, you don't have anything at all.
So true.
And we take it for granted until we don't have it.
1,000%. 1,000%. That's so true. And I wonder, as a fellow seeker of trying to find this holistic lifestyle, how we start out getting it so wrong to begin with, right? Is it just because we're not paying attention to the right things? Are we seeking other avenues? Do we think it's maybe cooler to do something else than this? But it's like, how did we get it so wrong?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think there's so many things, right? There's society, there's conditioning, there's, we come from, most of us, our parents didn't have the tools that we have today. So they were just, I know with my parents, they were just surviving. They were just like, let's just don't die. It's one of those things.
Just don't die.
Don't die. And so knowing that they were just doing the best they could with very limited resources, they just didn't know. My parents didn't know anything about emotional intelligence and regulating nervous systems and all of that. And so there's a lot of you just didn't know what you didn't know. I have a 12-year-old son, so I'm always talking to him about when I was his age, we did not have internet.
Right.
And you think about that, when you really think about it, it's like, how did we learn things? Well, you had to go to the library, you had to, read books, you had to read encyclopedia, but also think about all of the misinformation. And nobody, imagine one person tells you, oh, it's like this, it's always like this, and you don't even have the scope to even see outside of that.
And there's no way to fact check it.
No fact checking at all. None. Those old wives' tales might as well have been factual. And I think that also has something to do with why so many of us just when we become adult, it's adult time. Yeah, we're just figuring it out. Yeah. But we no one ever sat us down or had a conversation with you know what? It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have it sometimes will be, but always. And that was one of the biggest when I started my podcast and all that. It's how can I make things simple? Because everything is so complicated. Everything is so hard. Everything is messy. I always say, Hot Mess Express. Just join me on my Hot Mess Express. It's a crazy ride over here. But not everything has to be hard. It has to be complicated. And so what I started to do is, where can I simplify? What can I simplify in my life so that it's one less thing for me to worry about, to take my attention away from the things that matter? And I think that's how we have to start, truly, whenever we're on this journey of oh my gosh, I've been living like this for the past 30 plus years. What happens now? I think really getting to starting at number one of just who am I and what do I want?
Yeah.
When you ask yourself that and you find, like I did to myself, I found that I was in this miserable job and I found that I was miserable in general and that I hadn't processed trauma or grief or anything like that. It was just additional baggage that I was just pulling around with me everywhere I went in the world.
Yeah.
And everyone that came across me was oof, a lot of baggage there. Right? It's like your energy. It's like an aura. So I think that's what happens a lot. We just don't. So many of us just don't know.
Yeah.
Just don't know any better. And that's
kind of
so
put the blinders on, put our head down and just.
Yes. That's why I love podcasts like yours where you're just no, it is messy. Yes. But but there's hope and there's inspiration and there's, if you can just take one thing from, I was binge listening to all of your podcasts.
Oh, thank you.
I always do that when I'm being interviewed because I want to be prepared. And I'm yeah. And I just love how it's just all of these stories have this thread that we're resilient. And oftentimes I say this to my clients all the time, you are stronger than you think.
Mm-hmm.
You're so much stronger than you think. And that is our superpower. Sometimes when we've been through hell, we've been through trauma, we've been through all of the heartbreaks of life, it just makes you stronger if you choose to let it propel you into,
Yes.
let me use this for some good, versus sometimes people will just like internalize it all. And then it just grows and grows and grows in their heart and their spirit and their minds. And then they're spreading that.
And then they just become stuck.
Yes, stuck. Exactly. And I'm like, no, I want to spread positivity, inspiration, realisticness, right?
Yes.
Like not like airy fairy.
Right. Well, I like how you say you have a fiery message, right? So you're the hot mess, but you're going to give that fiery message. And I think that's the pivotal point, right? We come to this crossroads. Okay, we've gone through it, but now we have a choice. We can, and it's very, very important that you sit in the mess so you can process it. But once you come to that point, it's, I don't want to stay there. I definitely don't want to be a victim. So what is my other choice? What is my alternative? And that's I think where we're at, definitely.
Yeah, that's where and I think we're there every day. Every day that we wake up, we're making that choice.
Yeah.
Do you want to go left or do you want to go right?
Sometimes sometimes
it's left. Yes, exactly. Yep.
So as we start to talk about the mess, and I had mentioned you have a very deep mess.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a little background on that and how you got through all of that?
Absolutely. So, long story short, I try to make it as concise as possible. But when I was 4 years old, my first memories in life, 4 years old, my sister died. She was 1 year older than me. She had just turned 6 and she had cancer. So all I remember from like my very first memories are either of her being at the hospital or of her dying. She died in front of me. So that was 4 years old. I had no idea what any of this meant. My parents obviously devastated. I end up being their only child. They end up completely, as I can imagine as a mother, they didn't have the tools. So they were just in their own world. No one really thought had this affected 4-year-old Eva, because in their minds, they're like, she's not going to remember, or, because they're dealing with their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but I remembered. Every single day I remembered. And so that was the beginning of this almost like a disassociation from like my way of dealing with life as a child was just to be completely disassociated and just always kind of like not in the way, just kind of just figure things out, because my parents, the emotional neglect was there. I don't blame them. They didn't know any better. They just couldn't. They couldn't bear I sometimes think they didn't know how to love me, or they didn't know how to show it, because maybe there was this fear of what if she dies too. And
so almost maybe they were scared to get attached. Yeah.
Yes. So I didn't grow up with hugs, kisses, affection, none of that, So I'm like, okay, that was just kind of the way my life started. And we fast forward to me being an adult, and I moved to Los Angeles in 2005 to pursue music, acting, dancing, all of that. I've always been a performer, and I was like, you know what? After college, now's my chance. Let me go all the way. And a few years later, I end up meeting a guy, falling in love. I get pregnant, and then my son is born. Great. Everything's great. Well, everything wasn't great, but everything's flowing. Sure. And it's just regular me just learning how to be a mom again. No one teaches us how to be moms. So me learning how to be
They have all the books about the pregnancy.
All the books.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not even sure you can write a book on momhood. I think we all have our own journey, but there are none out there anyway. I mean, there are parenting books, but even the parenting books, it's like, do these authors have children of their own?
Yeah.
Some of this stuff.
Exactly.
Come on now.
It's insane. It's like they prepare us for like what to expect. And it's like, yeah, what to expect when they're 5.
Right.
Like, so all of this is happening. I'm a new mom. At that point, I made a decision. I said, singing, dancing, acting, not for me. That's not my destiny. My destiny is to be a mother, to be my son's mother, Christian's mother. And when he was 3 years old, his father and I were actually looking at houses. We lived in LA, looking at houses, doing all of this. And I'm thinking, okay, everything's coming together. Life's coming together.
Natural progression.
yeah, I have my man, and we're talking about marriage, and we're talking about buying a house and all of this. January 2015, doesn't come home. No one knows where he is. And it was about 12 hours that had gone by. So I couldn't go to sleep that night because I couldn't get a hold of him. And I'm like, are you coming home? Hello, what's going on? Nothing. So I'm worried, obviously. And calling his friends. His friends don't know where he is. Calling his job. No one's seen him. And find out, one of his best friends actually found out, I don't even remember how, there was a car accident the night before, and the car went off one of the cliffs, kind of like there's, in LA, there's lots of cliffs, lots of, high mountainy ranges and all that. There's an accident last night, car went off the cliff. I had actually seen the news. I just didn't know it was him in it.
Oh my gosh.
And I find out then that his friend calls me. She says, come to my house. I want to talk to you. She breaks it to me. I just remember thinking, this can't be real. What I did was something I probably should not have done is I actually went to the accident scene because I didn't believe he was gone. I was just like, my mind was like, this cannot be, like, this isn't real. I went to the scene of the accident. And it was exactly what you would imagine. Mess, blood, everything. And in that moment, it was real. I was like, okay, he's really gone. And now I have to tell my son.
Oh my gosh.
And my son was 3 and very smart, always been very smart. And I chose in that moment, I actually said it when I was at the scene of the accident. I said to my son's father, now his spirit, don't worry, I'm going to take care of everything. Christian's going to be fine. I just kept saying Christian's going to be fine. And I knew then that I had to explain this to my son in a way that my parents didn't explain my sister's death, in a age appropriate way, but not in a like, oh, he's not going to remember. Of course he's going to remember.
Sure. And it will affect him.
Yes. And I knew that it would. And so I remember it was the most heartbreaking thing when I sat my son down at 3 years old and I said, Daddy's not coming home. And he's like, why not? Is he coming tomorrow? Did he go somewhere? And I'm like, no, Daddy has gone to heaven. And he just starts crying. And I just held him. And that's another moment I'll never forget of him just crying, thinking like, and again, in the 3-year-old's mind, they don't really know what to make of it. But he knew it was real. And so I found him a child psychologist to help us kind of transition through that so that I could get the tools so that I could help him. So in that point, I went into what I call mama bear protective mode, right? I went into handling everything, taking care of everything. Crisis, like, I'm like, okay, I got to be strong for everything. Everyone got to be strong. Didn't realize that was a way, again, of my nervous system kind of taking over. But what happened was I hijacked the emotional stuff. I just didn't want to feel it. I'm like, if I was afraid that if I allowed myself to be sad or in pain, that I just would live there forever. And it's one of those things, there's a saying, I'm afraid if I start crying, I'll never stop. That was like, I always felt that. I was like, I just don't want to let myself cry because if I do, this might never end. So that happened 2015. We were living in LA. I decided to come back to Maryland, which is where my family is. And moved here a few months after my son's father died. When we kind of tied up all the loose ends, moved back home, stayed with my parents for a bit to like figure everything out. About 2 weeks after I get situated here in Maryland, my mom gets diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
And once again, I immediately go into fixer mode. I immediately go into, okay, all right, I know my dad's not going to be able to deal with a whole lot of stuff just mentally because of how he is. Now I got to take over. I got to take care of everything. I got to make sure everyone's good. She battled it for about a year. She ended up dying of lymphoma. So exactly 1 year later, from losing my son's father, now I've lost my mother, and my son has lost his grandmother. And, we were living with her, right? We're living here. So he, again, feels it. He, again, understands it, right? I remember at the funeral when when they started putting her casket down and we're putting the flowers down, that again, he broke down. That was like when in his now 4-year-old mind, it's real for him. And he starts crying. And he just like grabs me and I just pick him up and he's crying. And I remember thinking, and I said it to him, I said, now you have 3 angels in heaven, my sister, his father, and my mother.
Mm.
And again, trying to explain it to a 4-year-old in a way where they can maybe get it. Where it's like, okay, they're still here, but they're not here. Like that's hard for anyone to understand. So that happens. And I'm at this point, a disaster, a mess. I am emotionally a wreck. Here's what I do. I try to go straight back to work. Straight back to work.
Wow.
Because again, I'm like, I don't want to, I can't be sad. I can't do this, because I just remember thinking my parents were never the same after losing my sister. And I just knew I have to be strong. I have to be strong. And I just kept saying that to myself, again, bypassing all of the necessary healing and grieving and processing.
Just straight to trauma response, because that's what that's
all I know. That's all I know. That's the way that I know how to function. And so I go back and I am a disaster at work. I start making all kinds of mistakes. I mean, and people are understanding. They're like, she's a hot mess, because obviously, right? Like she's been through so much, but it all kept building on top of each other.
I can't even imagine.
Right. And it got to a place where it was like almost like it was like a pressure pipe. It was just like, I was going to explode.
How do you even begin to start to get from underneath all of that?
Exactly.
Like, I don't even know where you would start.
Yeah. Because you're like literally drowning and you just kind of keep trying like, okay, let me get a little bit of air. But then here comes the current. Let me get a little bit of air. And with grieving, right, and everybody grieves differently, but the way I explain it and the way it affects me, it comes in waves. It feels like waves coming across the shore, right? Sometimes it's calm. It's like, oh, I miss my mom. I miss my sister. I miss Christian's dad. And then sometimes it's like tsunami. It's just like all at the same time. And all of that will happen. And that was consistently happening, consistently. I never knew what the next day was going to feel like. And it all came to a head. I didn't know how it was going to explode, but it exploded. It all came to a head one day in my office, and I just passed out.
So you had a physical reaction.
Because
it has to come out somehow.
Has to come out. All of the stuff inside, energy has to move. It's going to find a way. It's going to find a way to like to move around and get out of you. And it came out physically. So I ended up passing out. It was dehydration. Because the way that I functioned, this is the part that I kind of forgot. The way that I functioned was on lots of pills and lots of coffee. So I was numb, and I also was very, very wired, like constantly wired but tired, right? So I was like on Xanax and on Zoloft and all that, because it helps me not feel. But there's also that part. You got to feel it. Even if the chemicals don't let you feel it, again, your body's like, there's a whole lot going on over here. We got to move it around. And so passed out, because I wasn't even eating. I wasn't doing anything, passed out on the floor. And that was the moment when I literally hit the floor. I wake up and I thought, I woke up and there's all these people around me. And I'm like, oh my God, did I die? Like, what happened? Because you're completely out of it. And they're like, no, you passed out. We're taking you, ambulance on the way. Okay. In that moment, I'm in the ambulance and I'm thinking to myself, I could have died today. I don't know, like I could have fallen and hit my head. Like this could have happened anywhere. And that was the moment where I said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Something is wrong and I have to figure out what it is. I knew I knew that it had to do with not processing the grief.
Sure.
But I didn't know what that even looked like. I'm like, what does it look like? Sit here and cry? I don't know. Like, I'm busy. Like, life is happening. Life is lifing. And so, but in that moment, I said, I have got to get it together. Because one thing I learned with my mother's cancer diagnosis was oftentimes these kinds of illnesses are caused by stress, chronic stress. And my mom was chronically stressed, depressed, anxious, all the things, because she never dealt with the grief of losing her child. My father never dealt with the grief of losing his child. They don't come from that therapy, and they don't come from that. They're old school, right? They're like, that's whatever. We don't need it. they needed it. They needed a lot of help, but they didn't know this. So I realized then, I said, I can't end up like her.
Yeah.
Because I am all my son has. I'm the only parent that he has left now. Of course, he has my father. And I thought, I'm the only person he has. And I cannot live like this. I don't want him thinking that this is life. Because I grew up seeing my parents depressed, miserable, anxiety, all of that. And it was normalized for me to be that, was to be just generally unhappy. Very normal. And when I looked at my son, I'm like, I don't want him to think life is just, everything is just difficult and people are just always angry and
sad.
It's sadness. Yeah. And so in that moment, I said, you know what? I have got to change this. Like, my son deserves the world. He has lost so much already. Mm-hmm. So if I don't do it for me, and in that moment, it was like self-love, self-care. What does that even mean? But I said, I will do it for him because he needs me. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I was like, I don't know what I have to do, but I have to start with getting my sleep regulated, because I could only sleep if I took Ambien. Again, because my mind is constantly
going. How do you turn it off?
Yeah, can't turn your mind off, right? I said, I need to get some therapy and figure out where to even go. Like, how do I even process this grief? And I need to get my health together. I need to get healthy again, because passing out of dehydration is not normal. That is literally your body like, I don't have any more fuel.
Yeah, there's nothing left.
I have no more to give you. And so that is when that was like the whole turning point for me, where I said, I have to get healthy. I don't know what it even means. Start researching. And that's when I find this health coaching certification. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm the type of person that I learned recently that I have ADHD. So it makes sense that my brain will be like, oh, I want to know all the things about it all. Right. And so I was just like, oh, I want to get healthy. Let me just sign up for this. I really just wanted to do it for me. Mm-hmm. When I signed up to get the certification, it had nothing to do with like, oh, I'm going to be a health coach now. I'm going to help people. No, it wasn't that. I was like, I want to get healthy and I want to be a better example for my son, because all we do is eat McDonald's. McDonald's and Chipotle.
Because you're surviving. You are surviving. And that nobody can blame me for that. No. I find it very interesting. A couple of things. One, the underlying theme that I have heard in a lot of my guests is the impact that stress has on health.
Yeah.
That's huge. In any capacity, going all the way to developing cancer, from passing out to just this insurmountable thing that we think we're controlling. We think we got it under control. We think we've got it. Yeah. But boy, we don't have it at all, not even a little bit. And until, like you said, get the correct tools to utilize and to fix it.
Yes.
So that would be one of my comments. The other comment I find, I guess, interesting is you talk about you were going to do this for you. And I think the moment that you gave yourself permission to go and seek that and to do that, had to have been, I can only imagine, because of my own experience, sort of I can breathe almost.
Yes.
Might even just be a small breath I can take, but wow, it feels different.
It does. It does. Because think about it, when you're in this, I have to take care of everything. I'm a fixer. I'm the strongest person in this family at this point, and I have to handle it all. You're just going. You're just like all the things. You're just always on. Everything is everything. There's so many other things going on. You can't even see.
You can't even see.
Can't even see what's going on, because you're just like, nope, I can't. No distractions. I have to do this. In that, though, when we're in that mode, and then it's also this, the sense of, I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to seem weak.
Which is also a trauma response.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. It's also this whole like, I got it. It's fine. I don't want to bother anyone. I'm not going to bother anyone. Right. Don't want to be a burden. Yeah. Don't want to be a burden. All of that. Right. So all of that was just like piling. When I was finally like, no, I can't do this alone. I can't do it alone. I didn't even know what it looked like. And I want to just reemphasize that for anyone that's listening, even if you don't even know where to start, just the acknowledgement that just saying, I don't know where to start, but I have to change. Even that, there's so much power in that. So as you open up your mind to even thinking about other options. Whereas before, your brain was you're just focused on one thing.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't even see that there's so much out there. There's so many resources. As soon as you can say, okay, I don't know what it is, but I need help. And whether that looks like a coach, a therapist, anything, right? You go to church, whatever, mentor, whatever it is, that all starts to open up for you. And then you start to see, oh, okay, I'm not alone, which is really important because sometimes we do feel that we're all alone. There is help out there, and I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. But first, I have to clean up all this mess.
Yeah. And taking that shift into a growth mindset, like you said, you open up these possibilities and your mind does start to sort of shift, even if, like you said, it's the first step and you're not quite sure what to do. But now you can see these other things.
Yeah.
That the perception that it changes is huge, I think.
Yes, it absolutely is. Absolutely. And that's so important. Something that I've learned with, so I have all these certifications now, but one of the things that I learned, one of the very pivotal things I learned was about thought creation, intentional thought creation, and how we're able to, yes, we have 60,000 thoughts a day. And yes, they're
That's all.
Of course, right? It's plus. Mine are probably, my ADHD brain probably has double. But, there's all of these thoughts, and we naturally lean towards negativity bias. So the majority, maybe 80-90% of our 60,000 plus thoughts a day are negative. Not because we're all miserable people, but because our brains are wired for survival. So our brain's like, oh, danger.
Yeah, we're constantly calculating what is happening to us.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Add to that the trauma responses. Add to that, your body remembers we're never safe.
Yeah.
And that was another really big thing. I never knew this until I got really, really deep into nervous system regulation and all of that. But your body remembers everything. It remembers just like the way that I remember being 4 years old and sitting in the exact couch that I was sitting in. Your body remembers every single little T or big. Your body remembers every single thing, and it just holds on to it. And that's why when we get triggered, right? Sometimes we'll get triggered. It's like, where did that even come from?
Right.
What is that? And it's like,
but now we're angry.
Yes. And it's because your body remembered something.
Yeah.
And for me, my nervous system always held on to, we're never safe. We're never safe, and no one has our back because we're all alone in the world. And that was a neural pathway that started when I was 4.
Yeah.
You're all alone in the world. So imagine a 4-year-old believing this to be true. 30 years later, I'm still feeling this in that moment. And I keep reiterating it. It just feels real. It feels real. And that just kept, it's almost the cycle there of just like, nope, got to do it yourself. But once I let go and I was like, no, I cannot. I have reached my breaking point. I can no longer live my life the way it's being lived right now. I have to change. And I, sometimes we talk about this often in our spaces of like, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom or something really crazy has to happen or either really bad or really good that like makes you be like, I wish it wasn't that way.
I say that all the time. I wish it wasn't. I mean, for me, it took having a heart attack, and I absolutely hate that it came to that.
Yes.
But man, it was, a wake up call, and I don't want it to sound cliche like you, but I'm very stubborn. So obviously I had to get my attention somehow.
Yeah. It's that whole thing where it's like, first you get a whisper, then you get a nudge. And then it's like, all right, I'm going to hit you upside the head because you're clearly
listening.
Clearly not listening.
So as you shift into a permanent healing pattern and you start to sort of come out of, into the light, right? And so you decide at what point, now I'm going to help people.
So I got my health coaching certification, I believe, in 2019. And at that point, I wasn't even really done with it yet. I was like, oh, this is great. So once I learned all like the basic stuff, I'm like, this is great. I have to tell other people because no one knows this. It was just this whole thing where I was just like, wait, how come nobody knows this stuff? Like, why did I have to pay like $5,000 to get certified in this when like this should be like a prerequisite of life of just like how to be healthy, right? Because that's a really big thing. It's like when I was thinking, okay, how do I get healthy? I don't know. And there's so much misinformation. There's so many different techniques and there's all these different things.
It can be overwhelming. Where do you start?
Where do you start? We get back to that place where it's just, and so many people will stay stuck there. I don't know where to start, so I just won't, right? And that's one of those things where it's like, again, if you just acknowledge, I don't know where to start, but I'm going to find out, but I'm
Mhm.
going to at least find, do some research. That just gets you out of that stuck mode. So that's when I said, okay, I have to share this with the world. I don't know how, I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's when, so my thought then was, I'm going to start a podcast. So I started a podcast back in 2020, and I ended up starting a brand new podcast 2 years later, but I started the podcast then, and when I was just talking about all the things that I learned at my health certification, like my coaching certification, I'm like, about your nervous system, about the different ways to different nutritional strategies. I was just sharing. I didn't have a course. I didn't have a package. I was just
Just on a broad spectrum. Here you go. Here's the information. Do with it what you want.
Yes. I just wanted people to just know. And at the beginning, 20 people listened to the podcast. Like it wasn't really making a huge dent in the world. But I still remember this one woman that I ended up meeting her in person, and she told me, so a few years ago, she said, I've been listening to your podcast since your first one.
Mm.
And I always joke, I was like, oh, you're one of the 20 people? And she's like, yes, I've been listening to you since 2020. And I'm like, wow. So my intention was, if I can just help one person, if I can just help one person. So one out of those 20 podcast listeners from back in 2020 was helped. And that, when you hear things like that, it's like, oh, this is what makes fulfillment and feeling like you're aligned with your purpose. This is what it feels like. Because then, so through that, I learned so many more things. And then I go into all the other certifications. So after the health coaching, I went into personal training, and then bar, and then life coaching, and then neuro-linguistic programming, and all of these things. But every time I would get a new certification, I just always thought about, how can I share this? How can I teach this to someone else? Because every time I learn a new tool, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Maybe not for everything, maybe not for everyone, but I have so many tools now. And the other kind of thought process for me is, I don't want the person listening to me to feel like, well, I got to get all those certifications too. It's like, no, you don't have to. That's just the way my brain works. My brain just wants to go all, full speed ahead. But one of the things I often say is, I have all the certifications, so you won't have to get them. Because I'm going to help you with all. I have a tool for that. I have a tool for that too. But that is really what started like me wanting to help other people. I started building out a coaching program, started taking it like slowly. People were like, how can I work with you? I wasn't even like advertising it.
Sure.
People just started asking, like, how can I work with you? I noticed that you've lost weight. I noticed that you sound, lighter. I noticed that you seem happier. Like, people just started noticing this and asking how they can work with me. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I started creating, programs and things like that. And that's how all of like the entire business started. And that's when I shifted over to the new podcast that is current now, and really started to dive in on this niche of helping busy, stressed women get healthy from the inside out.
Yeah. Because
one of the things, and you're in this space too, right? So oftentimes healthy means different things to everybody.
Sure.
Right? Means, some people healthy is skinny. Some people healthy is what the blood work shows. Some people healthy is strong, right? Different things for different people. But what would irritate me a lot with weight loss specifically, as someone who dealt with emotional eating, body dysmorphia, all of those things. What would really get under my skin was when I would hear people say, all you gotta do is count calories. All you gotta do is,
calories in, calories out.
Yeah, exactly. And
I hear that all the time.
Yes, eat less than whatever calories and work out more to like burn it off. And I'm like, that is some BS.
It really is.
Are you kidding me? When your nervous system is hijacked, it doesn't matter what your calorie intake is. It doesn't matter what you're eating as long as your body is in a dysregulated nervous system place, it will hold on to fat. So these like gym bro personal trainers and these little, 20-year-old influencers that are like, all you gotta do is and spend 2 hours at the gym. Right? It's like, when you don't have a job and responsibilities and
or trauma or any
trauma, right? Or changing hormones, which also affects our weight, right? And that fueled me, really, really fueled me. Because I used to get stuck. that fueled me to.
You're not alone in that.
Okay, good. Because I'm like,
You're not alone.
I can't even be on TikTok anymore. I'm like, it's just everywhere, and I'm like, this is wrong. Like, it's wrong.
No, now I go after the women, who openly admit they're in perimenopause. They openly admit hormone changes. They openly admit trauma. Like we've got all the mess.
Yes, exactly. And that was really what inspired me to really pivot, take a hard pivot into fitness, weight loss, but for the nervous system dysregulated woman, because that looks different. For example, and I'm sure you know this, if your nervous system is hijacked, or if you're always in fight or flight mode for whatever reason, sometimes it's your job. I have 2 clients that are surgeons. One is a cancer surgeon, one's a trauma surgeon. Literally, they're all day, they're in fight or flight mode all day long. So we have to work on decompressing and all of this other stuff. So those 2 clients of mine, even if they wanted to run on a treadmill or run around the block, it's the worst thing they can do.
Right.
Because their nervous system is like, she's running. We've been in fight or flight mode all day. So if she's running, there's danger. We're being chased by a puma or something because she's running. Your brain doesn't know that it's a treadmill, that it's a track, that it's a whatever. It's just like our adrenaline is up because there's a problem. And so what I say to my clients like that, it's cardio is probably not the best thing for you until we can either get your nervous system to relax a little bit, or until we can get you to a place where at least your brain doesn't think you're running from a puma, right? Find a way to decompress before you start running. So those are the things that, again, the gym bro, the little fitness girlies and all that, they're like, just do 2 hours of cardio. And then, on the 3rd day, do this. It's like, that works for you because you haven't lived life.
More power to you.
Yeah, good for you that you don't have trauma. But that doesn't work for a woman like me who is like, no, if I start running, my brain's going to be like, she never runs.
Yeah.
She never runs. But then also we hear all the misinformation of, well, that's the only way you'll lose weight. Well, that's the only way that you'll be healthy. And that's what made me turn all of that on its head of just like, no, absolutely not. There's a different way for you to lose weight and get healthy in ways that it doesn't require you to continue to hijack your nervous system, because that's an important thing, in a way that works with your hormones, because they are changing in your 30s, 40s, going into your 50s. And what you did when you were in your 20s ain't gonna work. It's just not.
No, it's
and it's not because there's something wrong with you, because as women, oftentimes we're like, oh, it's me. It's me and my body hates me. Like I hear all of these thought errors, and I'm like, your body doesn't hate you. Your body actually just wants to be healthy by any means necessary. But we internalize it, when really what we need more people to understand is it's just different now. After you have children, your body will never go back to being the same. So why do you think that it's going to bounce back to when you were in, a senior in college?
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
And we have to let go of that. But sometimes it's hard. When
that negative self-talk just ruminates and keeps going, and you just sit with it, and then you're to the point where, well, I guess there's nothing I can do because nothing has worked, and I'm not the 20-year-old spinner, and I'm not the gym rat, so we're just gonna forget about it and eat the Oreos.
Yeah, exactly. And that happens so much, and I hear that all the time when clients first come to me. They're like, I've tried everything, Eva, it just doesn't work, and they blame themselves. They think it's something they're not doing, or they're not disciplined enough, or they're not, I'm just not consistent. And they give me all of these things that they believe to be true. And I always say, you just don't have the right plan. You just been following the plan from, this person. It works for this person, but this person's not you. And oftentimes this is another thing that comes up a lot with clients, and the comparison. It's like, well, I look at other people and it works for them faster. Yeah, she hasn't had children. You do. Different. Stop comparing yourself to other people. And so that's why I often say that transformation has to happen from the inside out, because you can eat so clean and work out 3 hours a day. You can do all of these things. But if your mindset is not in alignment with supporting that, and if you're not cleaning up all the mess that comes up whenever we're trying something new, whenever we're doing something hard, it is almost inevitable that you will stop. You will give up on yourself. And that's why it's so important to work on the mindset piece along with everyone else, which is why I always say holistic health it has to come from a holistic place. Because I'll give you a meal plan, why? You're not going to follow it.
Right.
Right. And even if you do, it's not just that. It's not what you're eating. It's not whether or not you're working out. It's all of your body, all of the things happening in your body. And once you're really connected, and that was one of the things that in the work that I started doing, all the somatic healing work and all of that, becoming aligned and one again with everything, my head, my heart, and my body. So many of us are just walking around floating heads.
Yeah. They're not working together. They're not working together.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not talking to each other. They're not working together. One's off doing this thing. Yeah, for sure. So how did you come to have the opinion of the lifting of the weights, the strength training? How did you come to have that? Because that's something that I truly believe as well. Cardio never doesn't. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I walk for my heart, but I'm not walking for, skinny fit or whatever.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
I know it's doing something inside, because it's not looking on the outside.
Yes, no, that is actually one of the main reasons. Because even before I became getting all these certifications and a health coach and a life coach and a personal trainer, I had a personal trainer, and I remember what he had me doing was really interesting. And I just remember saying like, when I do cardio, nothing happens. I mean, like I sweat and like I feel good and everything, but like me doing an hour on the elliptical I'm not seeing any results. Like I'm literally not seeing any results. And that's when my trainer first said, when I first started working with this one trainer, he said, you have to do less cardio and more strength training. And I was like, that sounds stupid. Because that's not what we've heard all of our lives.
And then did he tell you have to eat?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you also have to eat, and you have to eat protein. I'm like, what? And so, but all of our lives, right? Especially, I'm 42, right? So grew up in the, late 80s, early 90s with like Susan Powers and like, Body Master and all of that. Yep. And also it's like, you got to do cardio. You got to do the, jazzercise and all of that. The step, or I used to be an aerobic instructor in college when we had the step classes, and everything was cardio. Right. And it's, go run on the track, or, if you run 3 miles a day. And I'm like, that has never worked for me. It's never worked. And so this is the before I became certified personal trainer, he's like, you have to do more strength training. And he kind of broke it down, but my brain was not computing it. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like strength training, like that's what the dudes do. Like, it's like, they're all like, and they're making weird noises. I'm not over there. And so that was probably what, like 2018, 2019. I'm like, okay. But that is how my body started changing. It wasn't through the cardio. It was literally, he's like, lift heavy. I'm going to force you to lift heavy. And I'm like, lift heavy? Right? I'm like, no, right? So it was all of these misconceptions that now I hear all day long, right? It's like, no, I'll get bulky. No, I thought it was cardio.
You're not going to get bulky. No.
Like, no. So when I started to really work, it wasn't until I started working with clients that I realized so many people, like everyone has a Peloton. They're like, oh, I have a Peloton. I just take my Peloton rides and whatever. And it's like, Peloton's great, but you need to lift weights. You need to lift weights. You absolutely have to. If you want to change your body composition, have to lift weights. And that I have found with even the women that I attract into my programs, is they don't want to be skinny, because I am not. And I always say this, I am not your skinny coach. I've never wanted to be. I've only wanted to ever be healthy and strong. Whatever that looks like. Yeah. Healthy and strong. And the more I learned about fitness and strength and all of the different modalities, the more I fell in love with strength training. And then there's like this like byproduct of strength training that I don't think a lot of people see the connection with yet, where it's like, when you finish a strength program, like when you finish for the day and you've lifted and your muscles are doing you feel unstoppable. Like it is the most like adrenaline boosting, dopamine boosting thing, where you're like, I just did that. I just deadlifted my personal record, or I just did that. It gives you this sense of accomplishment, and it makes you feel so strong, not just from the outside, but it also affects you in your body on the inside and your mind.
Yeah.
And I think that strength training is such a great tool for not only physical strength, but mental and emotional strength. Because I listened to your podcast about crying at the gym. I've actually cried at the gym myself.
Good to know. Man, it just gets you. It just gets you.
It's a great way. Like literally at the gym, you let it all out. Like I leave my stress on that mat. Like I'm stressed sitting. I'm gonna sweat it out. But no,
the guys have no idea what to do with it.
No, they don't. Is she crying? Is she hurt? Are you okay? And I'm like,
no, I'm mad at myself. I can't accomplish what I want to accomplish.
A difficult emotion right now. Yes. And so, but I just find that it's become my favorite thing to do. You don't have to do it for, I know the men spend hours at the gym. I think they do that for other reasons. I'm like, whenever I talk to a guy, he's like, I'm going to the gym. I'll see you in 3 hours. I'm like, why take you so long?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Who's that type of time? But I think so many of us think, oh, well, that's what it has to be. Oh, no. You can get an amazing workout with weights in 30 minutes.
Yep.
And I work with so many busy women that think in order to be in shape, I have to go to the gym. And I'm like, you don't even have to. You just need weights. You can do it from home. Because when the pandemic hit, the gyms were all closed.
Sure.
Really, when I was like, I'm going to create my old program. And I'm going to test it and I'm going to see if it works. And I tested it on myself in my basement with a few dumbbells, a few barbell, didn't have a whole lot, made it work though. And I was able to I lost like 20 pounds that year.
Wow.
and get stronger. And that's when I was like, oh, this works. Oh, this totally works. And you don't need a gym because there's that whole misconception of, and think about it, sometimes going to the gym's annoying, right? It's crowded. You got to wait for I just don't have the patience to wait for the machine.
Yeah.
So for me, when I realized that strength training is something you can do anywhere, sure, it's best if you could go to the gym because they have more stuff.
Sure, of course.
It's not a deal breaker. You can still do it, right? Like you can still do it in the corner of your room. I realized that if I could make this more simplified, accessible, and like just for my type of woman, for my women who are like, I want to be healthy and strong. I don't care about being skinny. I just want to make sure that I live a long life. I want to be able to get up and like play with my kids and like then like later on grandkids, right? And like all of this and not be like, oh, I can't because my back and all of that stuff. All of that. I kept hearing the same things. I said, you know what? More women need to understand the importance of strength training and just how life-changing that can be, how body-changing it can be. And it takes so much less time than running 3 miles a day. It's so much less stress on your body. Because sometimes we think about with cardio, cortisol comes up when you're doing cardio because your heart rate is coming up, right?
Yeah.
And so again, if you're highly stressed, you already have enough cortisol.
Right. I don't need any more.
Elevated cortisol.
Yeah. And I don't, and this isn't to put anyone down that's doing it, but I know my own experience when I was doing like HIIT or Tabata workouts, it did a number on my adrenals. Like it was so terrible for me. And it just, I don't know. I mean, it could have been me, sure, I'm that 1%, but I can't be the only one that it affects that way because of the things that we've been through, and, CrossFit and I mean, it's great, but those HIIT workouts for me were actually more stressful. I would finish and be exhausted, like have to sit down, gonna nap for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the response.
No, exactly. Like when you leave the gym, I know what for me, when I leave the gym and I feel like, I can do anything today. Like that's what I want to feel like. And that's what I want my clients to feel like. I'm like, I don't want you to feel like, oh man, I missed something or I didn't do it or I didn't do it good enough or I'm just so exhausted that like it's zapped me. But yes, think about it. If you're doing something super high intensity, your brain is like, whoo, high intensity. She's stressed again. Let's go into overdrive.
We need to go hibernate afterward.
Yes, we need to go hibernate. And all of that. And those are all the things that like enough people don't talk about.
Right.
It's these little things, these little nuances that can, for some people, obviously for you, like you're like, no, I'm on this journey. But imagine someone who doesn't have either the tools or the mental capacity or strength to be like, okay, HIIT and Tabata or not, for me, let me find something that is.
Right.
Too often, I hate exercising.
Right.
Because
and
it
I
makes
quit.
me tired.
Right.
And I'm done.
I quit. It shouldn't be this hard, but I'm done.
Yes. So we have to just keep telling that story of like, no, it just doesn't work for you and your body. Yeah.
And to the people who talk about wanting to get stronger and not necessarily be skinny, I've recently done a lot of reading on the functional strength training. And, you need to be able to push and pull your own body weight, whether that's one pull-up, one push-up, you need to be able to do that, and a lot of times, as we're talking about situational awareness and things like that, things are not going to be happening inside your house. So you need to be able to do those things in the elements, outside your environment, outside your comfort zone, swimming with all your clothes on, doing a pull, getting up over a wall, like whatever that situation might look like, you need to be training so you can accomplish those things. So now I look at it more of an accomplishment. Can I push and pull my own body weight? Am I strong in that area? And then that leads me down a different road. But to say I'm on this journey, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind the side benefit of being thinner. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so important. And I love that you brought that up too, the functional side of fitness that we often forget about. It's not just about aesthetics. It's not just about, can you see the muscle in my arm? Or, it's not about that so much where it's just like, if something happens, I know that I can run from here to there, that I can pick up something heavy if I need to, that I can, sometimes it's like when you're on the airplane, like no one's going to help you put your luggage up there. So just know how to do it yourself and feel great about it. It's like, and I think it's part of my independence too. Like, I don't need you. I can open my own doors. But no, it's really important though. Those are the things. I mean, squatting, right? We squat all day long. We don't think about it, but every time you sit down and get up, every time you sit down and get up, that's a squat, right? And so imagine if your legs are stronger, how much easier
things would be.
Those things happen, right?
Well, and they say as you start to get older, I'm only 45, but as I think about getting older, they talk about, you have to be able to get up and off the floor on your own without assistance.
Yes.
So if you can sit down, crisscross applesauce and get up from that position without assistance, boy, that is a, huge accomplishment right there.
Yes.
I think we just tend to lose that. We don't practice that.
We do. And we take it for granted because we're not thinking about it. We take it for granted because oftentimes when your brain associates exercise, it's to look a certain way or to accomplish something very specific. But it's like, yes, that can be one of the goals. But for me, like I mentioned a bit ago, it's always been, I want to be strong. I often say it's like, I want to be strong enough to whoop somebody's tail if I have to.
If you have to.
Right.
But if Mama Bear has to come out, man.
Sometimes Mama Bear came out at one of my son's baseball games the other day, and I was like, they really don't want me to go there, but if I must, I will protect my baby at all costs. But it's those things are really important, and it's really just a matter of, again, when you know that your body can accomplish those things, the simple things of getting up and not needing. I mean, sometimes for me, I got a hard time, getting out of my car sometimes. I'm like, I'm starting to make those noises where it's like, oh man. And what's going to happen in 10 years if I were to not stay nimble and flexible and work on my mobility? Getting in and out of the car becomes more difficult. We take it for granted now, just like when we started the show. We take our health for granted until we don't have it, right? It's the same with our fitness.
Yeah.
Your physical fitness has so much more than, being able to fit into a certain size. Sure, that can be another reason. But if that's your only reason, what I have found, when that is the only reason for someone wanting to either lose weight or get fit, it's very easy to lose momentum because it's too easy for your brain to be like, this is too hard. I don't want to do it anymore. Right. When you up the ante and the stakes are higher and you're like, wait, I would love to be in this size. Great. But what I really want is to feel amazing on the inside, because the better you feel about yourself, the better you present to the world. It makes you
project.
Yes, a better mother, a better partner, a better entrepreneur, employee, whatever you are. It starts with you.
Well, and you've told yourself you can do something hard.
Sometimes, and I think sometimes what happens with a lot of us, because I hear this a lot as well, is like, I just get tired of things not going my way, or, when things get hard, I just feel like it's just so easy to give up. And that is why I think something like giving yourself this challenge of becoming stronger, that is something that's so quantifiable, but also, again, it radiates. It's something that, like, it's different than you're like, oh, look at me in my little pants. It's different. It's a different feeling than like, I just lifted the heaviest weight I have ever lifted before.
It's a great feeling.
And I didn't, like, nothing broke. Like, I did it. I feel great. And you feel so accomplished. And for those of us that like our brains like the instant gratification, I know sometimes there's this joke of like, I went to the gym and I still didn't lose weight. Or like there's the whole joke there was like, oh, I only went once and I didn't see results. Actually, strength training, you'll see results pretty fast. Pretty fast. And that can be a great reward for your brain too, when it's like, oh, I see a little muscle forming there. A lot of my clients, they'll start to notice their calf muscles. They'll be like, I see my calf muscle.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes the first one that comes out. And I'm like, and how does that feel? Right? It's the smallest thing, but it's like, but it just makes you feel like I'm on the right path. I'm doing something good for myself. And that will inspire you to keep going. That feeling. Not do I look pretty? Do I fit in?
Sure.
Sure. Look at this muscle. It wasn't there before.
Right.
It wasn't there 2 weeks ago.
Right.
I'm making progress. And our brain needs that. It needs a little bit of like, you're doing good. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Right. And so that's what I love about strength training. I know we share our love for strength training, but I love that for that reason, because it's just like, you want to feel like you just got something done? Go lift some heavy weights.
Go do 3 sets with many reps in between. Tell me how you feel afterwards.
Yes, exactly.
So if somebody did want to work with you, where could they find you?
Yes, thank you. So they can go to my website. It's eva.fit. And I have a free consultation call where they can just, we get to know each other. If I think I can help you, then I let you know. And if I think I can't, I'm always willing and open to opening up my network to anybody that's like, maybe you need something more specific, maybe you need somebody more specialized. So they can work with me there, set up a call so we can chat. And there's also my website, not my website, my podcast. It's called, I just changed the name of it literally 2 weeks ago. So by the time this airs, it'll obviously be out, but it's now called Lose the Weights, Keep the Curves.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Lose the weights, keep the curves. Yes. I love that. Well, that's great. And anything coming up in the pipeline? Anything? Are you having a new course, books?
Yeah. So I'm actually working on my first book. I'm excited. I'm so excited about it. I hope that once it's ready, I can come back and share it with your audience. But
I would love that.
Yes, it's something that it's been on my heart for so long. And now that I feel so much more clear on my person, my messaging. It's like, it's women just like us. It's busy, successful, but very stressed. And we just need a different way of approaching our holistic health. And that's what the book's going to be about.
I love that. More resources.
Yes. Don't listen to the gym bros and the and the fitness influencers that are getting paid to be like, I take these supplements and I've lost belly fat. It's like, yeah, you're getting paid for that, ma'am. That's not. Yeah, it's probably not the person that you want to follow. So I just want to debunk all of these myths that make women like us sometimes feel like we're behind the ball, or like we'll never catch up, or we'll never get there. You absolutely can. You absolutely can,
and be stronger for it,
and be strong. And being strong, and this is something that I always say: strong is better than skinny. I know it's controversial.
No, I totally agree.
I'd rather be strong any day, because, again, if I have to fight someone, if I have to fight an animal, I mean,
you don't know. And in this crazy world, we always need to be prepared for whatever is going to be thrown at us. So absolutely. Yeah. Well, Eva, you've been great. Thank you so much for coming on Everything's Messy. I'd love to have you back. I would absolutely love it. We can get more fine-tuned into fitness, talk about your book. Like, I would love it so much.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been such a pleasure, and I appreciate you so much for sharing your audience with me.
I'm so glad you were here.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. If you enjoyed the mess you heard here today, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review or maybe a follow, I will even take a messy comment or otherwise. That would be awesome. Social media is where you can find me. I am on Instagram and Facebook at Everything's Messy Wellness. Website is at everythingsmessy.com. Email at sarah@everythingsmessy.com. Reach out. Let me know what you think of the mess. I welcome any and all feedback. If you think you have a messy story and you would like to be a guest on my show, you can find the guest form on the website. Thanks again for listening to Everything's Messy podcast, and keep it messy.